Hi everyone, this is a tutorial on how you can build your own basic spinning trap using the Parkbound level editor. The first thing we want to do is create a base for our trap, so we'll drag it out. So it's a little above the ground, so we want to hit T, which will automatically snap it right where we want it. And then we can hold Alt, which will let us scale from the center. Or if we wanted, we could just drag from the side. We can shrink it down a little bit, and then we want to create another object directly on top of this one. So we can hold Shift and then click. Instead of scaling, it'll create another object. So we can let this one use the same shape. We can use the shape selector and then click here. So we want this to probably be a little more circular, so we can add 16 divisions instead of, or 16 slices instead of 8. And then let's paint these two different colors since it's hard to tell which object is which at the moment. Great, so now we have two objects that can move independently of another, and this top object is attached to the base. So if we move the base, the top one moves with it. So now we need to add spikes to our trap, so when it hits the player, they go back to the start. So we can add another capsule shape, except this time we're going to turn it into a cone. And you can see how modifying this graph modifies the shape inside the game. And then we want to attach it to our top cylinder we have here. We can add a new component using the component window, and we want to clone this spike so it appears all over this shape, which we can use the surface spawner. So now we have a spike appearing on every single face of the shape. However, we probably don't want to have any spikes on the top. We really just need the spikes on the edges. And they're also appearing on the bottom right now too. So we can use the part calculator on this original cylinder. We can either click here or just select it on the menu. And then we want to just get rid of this as their default part, which will give a different material for each face. So let's just remove all of them except for two, since we need one where the spikes spawn and another one where they don't. So we'll create a new one, and we'll say the outside is this red color, which just means it's the first material. The colors don't have any bearing on the actual materials inside the game. So now, instead of spawning on parts 1 and 2, we want to spawn on the red one, which is part 1. And so we click on our cone. And now we just have the spikes spawning where we want them to. So if we want to add more spikes without changing anything on the spikes themselves, we can modify this model. Right now it only has one rectangle, so we can make this to be 5, so we can see the rectangles are created here. We can hit refresh, and then it'll automatically add all of our spikes to the shape. We can also make these spikes any material we want. We can make them white. And then we can also modify, all these spikes are just being created off this one spike here, so modifying this one will affect every single other spike attached to it. So that looks about right. You can also maybe make it a little thinner so they have a little more room, or we could just, again, use the menu here. So this looks about right. The only thing we have left to do is if we would touch it, it doesn't hurt us. Just making it a cone itself won't be enough. You have to go to the shape and add a new trap component, and now if the player touches it, they'll be sent back to the start. The next thing we want to do is make it so our trap moves. We want it to basically spin around like this. So we add a new spin component. And this is saying it's going to spin from 0 to 360 using a timeline. We don't have one right now. You can see that on our graph window. So what we can do is we can use this one, or we can create a new one, and then set this to use the new timeline. So that looks about right. If we wanted it to spin the other way, we just set the offset to -360. And you could even use this interface to double the speed. But anytime you're working with speed, it's usually better to use the timelines, which is here. And this says every 5 seconds spin in a complete circle. So we can make it go faster by just lowering this time or pressing these buttons. So 2 looks pretty good. And so now, if we would walk into it, it hits us right. So what we can do is we can grab the base of the shape, which will copy the entire trap, and we can put it other spots in the level. Or if we know that we're going to be using this in a lot of different places, we can grab the base, hit prefab, and then compile it, which will create your own trap that you can reuse in any level by using the import function. So we still have our original shape. We really don't need any of this. So let's pause it and remove the base, which will remove everything else. And now we have this prefab that we can copy and use anywhere in the level. And so now if we try to get to the end, we're going to have to dodge each one of these different traps. And we didn't make it. One thing we can also do is edit the prefab. So we can go in here and we can make any changes just like before. And that will appear on every single one of these traps in the actual level. Thanks for watching the video.